All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Backpacking Podcast. It's time for that Monday night party where me and Jeremiah get together and we just hang out with all of you guys. We're so excited to be here. Jeremiah, how are you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic. We're here for another live stream Monday nights. No football right now, but you do have the Backpacking Podcast.
And it's so much better anyways. I mean, let's just be honest.
I think that some people would disagree, but
they're wrong. Okay, So Jeremiah, tonight is going to be a great night. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun. We've already got people in here leaving comments and stuff already. Actually, we had one person telling us to hit the music. They were ready. Low for X. He was all about it. We have a really cool guest on tonight, Mr. Chris Smead from Outmersive Films. We're psyched about that. Outdoor Transit's already said he's a big fan of his work and he's excited about tonight. I'm sure there are a lot of people logging in right now because they're excited for the conversation we're going to have with Chris.
Oh, it's gonna. I've been looking forward to it, man. I watched his Highline film, got all refreshed up, got a lot to talk about.
Oh, a lot. But before we do, we need to thank our sponsor for tonight. So let's get a big thank you out to Outdoor Beards. I know for a fact, like, both of us are big proponents of outdoor beards. Like,
yeah, I have a beard.
This beautiful brown thing growing under my face is a result of the use of Outdoor Beards products. I'm a big fan of the beard balm. The one that my wife likes is the Morning Brew, which is a chocolate coffee scented. I was going to say flavored. I don't know what it tastes like. I'll shoot straight. I don't know what it tastes like, but it's scented. And my wife says it smells like chocolate popcorn. And so it makes her happy. And happy wife, happy life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my wife, she really liked the grandpa's tobacco pipe. She said
nice.
It smells all vanilla and sweet, but you know, I like the oil, especially after a shower. You really strip the essential oils from your beard so you can replenish those. Or if I'm getting up in the morning and I've already had a shower the previous night, I will use the Balm. I've been using the Lost in the Woods scent. Have no idea what it tastes like either, but it gives you a little more styling. The Balm does over the oil. So if you have a beard, I'd highly suggest. He's got a bunch of products too. Like I use his brush. He's got lip balm. He's got mustache wax. He's got soaps. I've used 2 full bars of soap. So Matthew, if you're listening, I could use some more soap.
Well, big thank you once again to our sponsor for tonight's episode, Outdoor Beards, for being the sponsors and making sure we can afford to keep doing this, because I don't know about you, Jeremiah, but I have too much fun doing this to want to stop.
Amen, brother.
So let's introduce our guest for the night. He is a filmmaker, and he's made one of my favorite backpacking films in Highline, and he also made a film that not as many people know about, the High Sierra Trail, where he's actually the star of it. And we'll get into some more of this later, but really thankful to have on with us tonight, Mr. Chris Smead. How are you, man?
Yo, how's it going? I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing awesome.
Fantastic, dude.
Doing awesome.
Watch your Highline film, and I have to say, I have been doing YouTube and doing trip videos. I say that in quotations because after watching yours, I was just like, man, I got to stick to this talking head stuff because it's absolutely no competition. Your movie's so good. I don't even know how you even start with putting something like that together. Obviously, you got to, film it and all that, but I don't know. Where does it even start?
It starts with it's a pretty painful process, to be honest. It's the shooting is the easy part. So the hiking and shooting part is super easy, but before that, there's months and months and months, sometimes years of planning and out there you can't really predict what's going to happen, so you don't really have like a solid storyboard per se. It's more just like, okay, a bunch of stuff's going to happen out there. We don't know what it is. We're just going to try to be ready for it. So like, if this happens, we need to have this lens. If that happens, we want to have that lens, that kind of a thing. And the only thing that's really predictable is like the stuff that happens within city limits. So it's not all hiking films for us. You've probably seen. I mean, they're hiking related films, but they don't always take place 100% in the outdoors.
Right.
In Highline, you see a lot of stuff within city limits as we go into the stories of the hikers. And those things you can predict in storyboards. So lots of I'm going to say ugly, lots of tedious planning involved. And then, there's a hike, which is the fun part, and the shooting, which is fun. And then the months and months and months of editing and coloring and post-sound production that happens. And that's where things get crazy. That's the painful part. That's where I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. But right when I'm about to lose my mind, we finish. So that's what's happened with the last two films. The next film, who knows? I might actually lose it before the end. But
well, question for you, because a lot of people that are in backpacking are doing the ultralight thing, trying to get lightweight and everything. And I know you're probably as light as you can get, but you've got camera gear and everything. What are we talking about for pack weight for you?
It depends on the project, like a lot. So obviously being ultralight is like critical to this. If you have like a 50-pound pack, you can't go out there with like another 20 pounds worth of camera gear. You would not get anywhere. So we pare things down as light as possible, like most backpackers do, and maybe even take a few extra sacrifices in the process. Like, I don't bring a stove anymore. I just try to go cookless and whatever. If I need to lose weight on the trip, I will do that. I'll bring not enough food and I'll just plan on losing some weight. It's fine. I don't mind.
Wow.
And it happens.
Sacrifice for the arts.
Yeah, there's some sacrificing involved. And what's funny is like you don't get the benefits of a normal ultralight backpacker. Like normally an ultralight backpacker would be like, oh, look, I cut all this weight for my pack. I have this lightweight pack. It's great now. And it's like, I just cut all this weight for my pack, made all the sacrifices. Now I'm going to throw in like 20 pounds of camera gear.
Wow.
So, I mean, it depends. Sometimes I can't remember how much I brought for a Highline. I want to say it was maybe 15 pounds. And I think for High Sierra Trail, that was an easier project, probably like 11. I think it was 11 or 12 pounds or something for High Sierra Trail. So it depends. The next one will be even worse.
How many camera bodies and lenses are you taking? And do y'all just like bring an extra person? They're your Sherpa?
We might actually do that on the next project. But in the case of Highline, it was great because we had 5 ultralight backpackers with room in their packs. So they all turned into mules. They were all carrying a couple pounds worth of batteries and extra lenses and like audio gear, which helped. For camera bodies, I had one camera, and Gordy had another. The co-director had another camera, and then Matt Favreau, who's in Highline, he actually helped us shoot as well, and so did Benny Braden, your friend. And yeah, they were very helpful. So yeah, we had I think a total of 4 cameras and then a couple GoPros here and there just to get some extra shots when it's raining. When it's raining, you don't want to like pull out the nice expensive camera, right? So you got to do something. GoPros aren't my favorite camera, but when it's raining, it's really
it's fantastic at that point. Yeah.
Yes.
And the underwater shots with the GoPros, like
for sure,
it really adds to like the whole dynamic and the storyline. But one of the things that I run into, I like try to do these trip videos. Typically, a story, like if you're going to write it or script it, you're going to have like a beginning. It's going to have a setting, and then there's going to be some conflict, and then the story follows it, and then there's resolution. But sometimes you just go on a trip and it's like all conflict, and then you have to end like there's no resolution. How do you overcome whenever you sit down and you're ready to edit it and you're like, okay, well, how do I make a story out of this? Because sometimes I've been like, this trip video is not, it's not coming to fruition. And obviously you can't do that if you've already put together the logistics of having all these people. It's already hard enough to get 5 people together.
Yeah. So as far as the story goes, I think there's some saying out there that I'm going to butcher this quote, but basically it says that a good story cannot be synthesized; it needs to be distilled. So in the case of
yeah.
documentaries, you have the story there. I mean, if you shot it all, it's there, and it's just a matter of like distilling it into stuff that's digestible for the viewers, right? I mean, if you throw too much in there, it'll be boring. But you just want to take the right parts and put them all together in the sequence to make sure that that tells the story, and not. And really, it's not like one long story. It's usually like a bunch of any movie really. It's usually a bunch of small stories that kind of fit together, ideally with an overarching theme, so that it feels like it's all one beast versus a bunch of tiny short films.
We actually have an offer for you, by the way.
Uh-oh.
Hunter's Trip on here. He said, "I'll be the Sherpa. Let me learn some filming tips."
Awesome.
So, so you can have an unpaid intern there for you.
Great. Yeah. Well, we've had a few people offer stuff like that, and it's like, they don't know what they're getting themselves into. It's gonna be torture. We're gonna put like 50 pounds of camera batteries on them and stuff. And
Hunter, he's a good friend of ours, and I recently went backpacking with him, and he's like a minimalist. We tarp camped. I don't know how much tarp camping experience that you have.
None.
But
I'm too scared of bugs.
well, it was freezing cold, man. I mean, it was like low 20s at night. Yeah, it sucks. So it's okay though, but he does the whole sandals. But one of the guys in Highline, I noticed that he was wearing sandals.
Joe Velasco, yeah, the founder of Z-Packs, sandals everywhere. That guy's like weird. He's so tough and so hardcore, but he never like he's not the type to ever brag about it. He just kind of is that way.
Yeah,
I've never seen a guy so minimalist. He'll just casually talk about stuff, like wearing sandals when he did the Continental Divide Trail, like through snow and stuff, with sandals. Like, what the heck, man? I mean, he had waterproof socks at that point, but for the most part, he just does it in sandals. He says there's no downside, but I don't know. I can't get myself to do that yet. Maybe it's
it was kind of shocking that he was the one that didn't end up making the trip, because I've followed him for a while.
Yeah,
and he is hardcore. Like he's a tough dude. And so when I watched the movie and realized that he had physical issues, did they ever find out what was going on? Was it just altitude sickness, or what was it that he was struggling with there?
So he had some sort of really bad lung infection. He got sick.
Oh,
I mean, who knows? Maybe it was like the precursor to COVID or something. But he got really, really sick, and his lungs were all messed up. And on its own, that would have been kind of tough. But then when you combine that with hiking at elevation, and the elevation profile in the Uintas is pretty challenging, and I think that just kind of, messed up his lungs pretty bad, and he was really struggling, which is not like him at all. I mean, it says over and over in the film, and this is not like Joe. It really isn't like Joe. I mean, Joe's such a tough guy, and for some reason that just really took him out. The Uintas are interesting. I think all of us have been to much higher elevations. We've all done the John Muir Trail or Pacific Crest Trail and stuff, and with that, you have a lot of time before you gain elevation. Or if you do go to high elevation, you're usually, you go high and then you come back down low, and then you could sleep at like, say, 8,000 or 9,000 feet. In the Uintas, you go high and you really stay high. You don't really get any break after the first day in terms of elevation. So I think that was impacting all of us. I was shocked. Actually, Matt had elevation issues as well, and so did, obviously, Redbeard did in the film. Yeah, he was, and that guy's done the PCT. That guy's been elevation many times without issues, but in this case,
he's also been to Patagonia, I think, hasn't he? He's been down there as well.
Yeah,
so
all those guys have been to Patagonia. These guys have hiked all around the world together. It's pretty cool.
The elevation is no joke, man. I've had 2 like high elevation experiences in my life, and one, I was student teaching in Ecuador, and so you just fly in, but you don't have to do any backpacking or anything like that. You're literally like going to the airport, and then you take a taxi to your house. But I remember being there for like 3 weeks, and my body was still like not acclimated.
Oh, wow.
I remember I love, like, before this backpacking podcast episode tonight, I went to my local gym and played pickup basketball, and I love playing basketball. And I was playing like 3 weeks after being there. I was only there for a month, and I was like, I gotta get some physical activity. I remember sprinting down the court one time at like a public park, and I was like, this is just like breathing through a straw. Like, you can't get your breath. And the other time, we took a trip to Colorado to do Holy Cross Wilderness, and we flew into Denver and then drove up. And I just remember, like, we started out like 11,000 feet, and then after we hit 12,000, we didn't come back down for several days. And a couple of guys were getting really sick. Like, one of them, I thought might have to take a helicopter ride out of there, hitting their panic button. And another one, I felt so bad. I remember he's throwing up, and he had a GoPro, and he had kind of like rigged up his camera bag hooked on the side of his hip belt with some cordage and stuff. And he had just slipped, the GoPro's got those fat, it's like a monopod, just like a little handle that you can hold your GoPro out. He had just stuffed it down in there, a brand new GoPro. This is like the first or second trip he took it on. And he was throwing up as a result of altitude sickness. And at some point his GoPro fell out, and we made it to camp. He backtracked and looked for it, couldn't find it. The altitude sickness is real.
Yeah, it's weird. Altitude sickness, it's so weird. It seems to impact people differently, and it's not even a fitness thing. You could be like the strongest guy in the world and have hiked a million miles, and still altitude can take you out. And I've noticed too, like, sometimes it'll be fine. Sometimes, like, I will go to 14,000 feet and be totally okay, and then another trip I'll go to 14,000 and I'll be like, I have a headache, I feel like crap. So it just,
Well, I know years ago I did Kilimanjaro, and I actually took medication so I wouldn't get altitude sickness. Because, I mean, that's 19,000 feet. So you can imagine, I mean, we're sleeping at 16,000. And so, that we had guys that were like, oh, I'm not going to take that stuff. And every single one of them got horrible headaches. One guy was green. Ooh. I mean, it's just, it really messes with you. It does, big time. We got a question for you from All Things Outdoors. It says, I have an idea of what I want to shoot, but get on trail and I lose discipline, especially in group hikes. How hard is it to keep on track, and what are your best practices?
Honestly, when I go backpacking, normally I'm focused on backpacking and hiking. When I'm shooting a film, I tend to focus pretty heavily on the film. Usually at that point, many, many months have gone into the planning effort. And so your brain is on the film, and you're focused on the finished product. You want to make sure you have all the shots, because if you're missing any shots, that is awful to deal with in post. So at that point, I'm just kind of on it, and usually there's several other people involved. The co-director Gordy, for example, with Highline, was there, and we were always kind of like chatting about the next shots we wanted to get. So I mean, yeah, it's about making life easier for you later in post. So I think that just kind of guides, that kind of like keeps me disciplined. If you're by yourself and doing it, I think it's just, I mean, how much do you care about the video? I mean, you can shoot like pieces here and there and still make something that's kind of fun. If you want to be more detailed, you definitely got to be a little bit more disciplined. And I guess I have a routine, I wake up in the morning and jump out of my tent as soon as I can, shoot the guys doing their thing, and throughout the day I make sure I get those shots. Every time there's a break, I shoot there as well. And then at the end of the day, I have my routine of like cleaning the lenses, getting all the dirt off of them and stuff with the squeeze ball and a little brush and stuff. And I think it's just a matter of getting into the mindset of focusing on the film, which is a little bit weird, because I mean, it kind of takes away from the outdoor experience, I guess, a little bit for most people, because you're not focused on just connecting with nature. You're focused on the technical aspect of it and getting all the shots you need. So yeah, if you're willing to torture yourself to that degree, like myself and my colleagues, discipline, I guess, is the right word to say.
Well, the thing here is, though, you are a backpacker. That you like going backpacking. This is not just like a guy who happens to find a niche in videoing backpacking trips. You're actually a backpacking guy. You were just in Utah recently, right?
I was just in Utah. That's a funny trip, funny story in itself. So myself and my friend Jason went out to do the Dirty Devil Loop in southeast Utah, kind of near Hanksville-ish area, if some town probably most people have never heard of. But it's a pretty unknown loop, and it's the desert, and it's really not many people do it. It's pretty challenging because the water resources are very limited, and the terrain's pretty rough. There's some class 5 stuff. and Jason and I have climbing experience, so we went out there and thought we were going to knock it out. We were all prepared. We've I've got like 90 something trips under my belt, so I thought I had the experience. And we got out there, and then the reliable water sources were dry.
Oh.
Like what? And it rained the first day. The first day we're on the trail. And we're like, dude, this is gonna be great. We're not worried about water at all. And all the sources were dry. And at that point, I mean, we got to day 3 and we're like, this is not gonna work well. So
Oh,
we had to
man.
bail. It was supposed to be like I think 8-day trip, 7-day or 8-day trip, and we ended up bailing after 3 days, which is fine. We just went back to Utah. We hung out in Moab and did a bunch of climbing and stuff, which was fun. And I almost died.
Wait, hold on a second.
Well, how did you almost die?
So,
yeah.
Fill us in on this story.
So I guess it's a slightly different audience. This is not really backpacking related. It's climbing related. But myself and my friend Jason, who's probably watching this right now. Hey, Jason. We were climbing a tower in Arches National Park. Not a delicate arch. It was a legal tower. We were allowed to climb this cool sandstone tower. And I was near the top, and it was a 100-foot tower, and I was at maybe 80, 85 feet up. And I was placing a hex. I was placing a piece of protection to keep me from falling off the rock. And part of the process is that you tug on it to set that thing. And I tugged it, and I slipped, and I fell. And I fell like 20 feet through the air. And I was like, ah! And it's weird, like, when you fall through the air, like, you think it's going to be quick and instant. And it's not. Like, I was in the air. I'm like, I'm in the air. I'm still in the air. Like, whoa, I'm still in the air right now. Like how am I still falling? And it's only 20 feet, but I think I've never had this happen before, where your brain kind of slows down time.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe people who've gone through like traumatic car accidents or something could relate to that. But
It's
yeah, I
like the
just
frame
felt-
rate. The frame
Yeah.
rate of your brain is like speeds
up. Yeah, and then stretches out, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just falling through the air for a long time, and eventually, the rope caught me, and thank goodness my friend Jason was down there belaying me, and I slammed against the rocks. My right leg is like wrecked. There's like a bruise like this big. I've never had a bruise that big before. And yeah, it still hurts. But that's
The
okay. It
question
was
is,
fun.
did you get a good picture of it, and did you put it on Instagram?
I didn't get a picture of it happening. I wish we had video of it happening. There was a bunch of tourists watching me, so they're probably like, look at that dumbass or this idiot doing that. But yeah, I mean, I think I got some video afterwards saying, here's where it happened, and we posted it, but nothing too exciting.
Well, it sounds
man.
pretty terrifying to me, but I guess that's not exciting. So,
See, before the show, we were talking about climbing a little bit because I have a buddy, and he lives in the same city I do. His name's Bryce, and he wants me to go climbing with him, but I know it's outdoors. Like anything outdoors, you typically is fun, whether it's fishing or backpacking or hunting or climbing or whatever, but different set of gear. But it kind of overlaps with backpacking, like you were saying earlier, because you have to hike in to your spot, even if it's day hike in, climb till dark, and then come back out. But I just don't know about the heights, man. I feel like I'll get to the edge whenever I'm backpacking. You'll get to an overlook or something, and you get so close, and you're like, not going any closer than this. My whole body's starting to tingle. But with climbing, you're roped in, and you have somebody. What is the person on the ground you call them? They're belaying you?
Yeah, you have somebody belaying you.
Yeah, so they're making sure that even if you fall, that there's basically counterweight. Am I right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like it's safer than scooting to the edge backpacking, but I don't know about it, man.
Well, he's not talking about free climbing, man. Like, it's not like you're going to go up the side of a 500-foot cliff by yourself with no gear. I mean,
yeah. Well, you kind of can fall still. I mean, I did. I fell 20 feet, right? So
right.
I mean, I don't want to bore the viewers too much with climbing stuff, but basically, there's the beginner style is called top roping, right? Where you have the rope already set up and you're climbing, and if you fall, you just kind of float away from the rock, maybe a foot or two, right? Or you just sit there. Totally safe. That's a great way to start. When you get to more advanced climbing, when you're doing like sport climbing or trad climbing, they call it, you are placing your protection on the way up. So you're placing pieces of gear into the rock to keep yourself from falling too far. So there's definitely points where you're above your protection, right? So be like, okay, here's a device I placed into the rock to keep me from falling too far. You clip your rope into that. When you climb above that, say you're 7 feet up, if you fall that 7 feet plus, you pendulum. I mean, you
Yeah,
fall
then you're
on
gonna
that piece
hit
of
the
protection.
rock.
So you're falling at 14 feet, right? And in my case, I fell 20. But
Oh
yeah, I
man.
mean, so there's some risk there. You do have to be careful. People get injured at times. But I mean, if you're top roping, you'll be okay.
Yeah,
I'll give
one
it
of
a go.
one of our climbing friends is actually on right now. Devin
Oh,
from
cool.
Backcountry
Oh,
Exposure.
Devin, I know Devin. Hey, what's up, dude? Oh, he can't hear
So-
me, but hi.
So we probably should have said this 20 minutes ago, but you have 2 films that you've already published, right? Your cinematographer, videographer. Your 2 films are High Sierra, right? That was your first one.
The High Sierra Trail and Highline.
And Highline. Okay. So give us the Reader's Digest, just so people, like I said, we should have said this before, but give us the Reader's Digest version of those so that we have context of what you all were doing.
Sure, yeah. So the High Sierra Trail is a semi-short film, 39 minutes, set in the Sierra Nevada. Myself and my friend John, we hike, a west-east traverse of the Sierra Nevada, on a fairly well-known trail, and had a lot of fun, some adventures along the way. And then we also had a park ranger, a former retired park ranger, talk about the history of the trail, and there's a lot of animations that kind of talk about that. And yeah, so that was that. And then the next film that we did after that was called Highline. Highline was a much bigger beast, feature length, and almost 2-hour film actually. And that goes into it talks about a trail called the Uinta Highline Trail in northern Utah, northeast Utah. It's was pretty unknown. I think it's getting a lot more attention now. And yeah, it follows 5 fairly well-known hikers as they do this traverse, just 100 miles, and we go into the history of the trail. And the heavier component of the film is that we go into the history of each of the hikers and their personal stories, and they all have pretty interesting backstories. And yeah, so that's that. And yeah, so far they've been doing pretty well online, and yeah, Highline in particular is doing great.
And I have a question for you about your first movie, the High Sierra Trail. You made a statement in that video that has not escaped my brain since I watched the movie. You were talking with your buddy, and he asked if you wanted gravy, and you said no. Gravy is animal sauce, and I don't want it. I don't want it. Where did gravy as animal sauce come from?
It's like animal juice. I mean, I love eating animals; they're delicious, right? I mean, sorry
Yeah.
to any
Yeah.
vegans that are watching this, but I mean, I eat all sorts of meat, but like gravy to me is kind of weird. It's just like the juice that comes out of like a. I don't know. It just kind of weirds me out. Ever since I was little, I never liked it. Like when I think of gravy, I think of like when I was like 8 years old, getting that TV dinner, and there's that gross like gravy that never thawed out right. So you have like this
Kinda
half
like
frozen, half
yellow.
like gross. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of gelatinous and stuff. Ugh. So I just never liked gravy, and I'm sure people are gasping out there right now, like, how dare he talk about gravy like that?
Oh, I'm watching that at midnight, and my wife's asleep, my kids are asleep, and I'm fighting back, laughing as loud as I possibly can when you said that. I've never heard anybody call gravy animal juice before. Animal sauce. That's what it was. Animal sauce. I was cracking up, man. That trip cracked me up too, because whereas Highline was about you filming other people, the first movie was actually about you, and it was your personality, and it was great because you made the statement about John. You're like, I'm just here to drive him crazy.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that was just the natural flow of things. I've known John for a while, and we worked together, and I've driven him crazy for a couple years before we even started that trip. So it's just kind of how our friendship works, and so it happened out there as well.
Well, we're getting comments on the gravy, so we probably need to make sure these get posted up here. So, if there's a place for all God's creatures right next to the mashed potatoes.
I like that. That's awesome.
Gravy is not gross. Blasphemy. Salisbury steak gravy for the win. Animal juice. And here we go. Time to bring out the gravy fountain.
How do they even make that stuff? Why is it like so soft? They just squish the animal and get the juice out, and then like freaking like add. I think there's like cornstarch or something in there, right? I mean,
yeah.
Usually it's just the drippings from the meat, and then you just kind of put some flour in it and stuff. But here's a question: do you like pizza?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, Midwest Backpacker said if he doesn't like pizza, I'm leaving.
Oh no, don't worry, you're good. I like pizza. Pizza's awesome. Every type of pizza I like, unless it's got anchovies. That's weird. Nobody likes anchovies though.
No, I don't like anchovies.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you something that really caught my eye in Highline, and you mentioned it about High Sierra, and it was graphics. And I want to know, and I don't want to bore everybody out there with all the technical stuff. I know you're like, oh, we're a backpacking podcast, but I'm really curious because I make these videos and I've been doing YouTube for multiple years, and you always want to make them better. You have these graphics, and it's basically a still image, and you're either scaling in or zooming out, and you have motion in it. And I know on some of them, like you added in rain. I assume that you do most of the editing for the films, and
Yeah.
you have a vision of how you want to do each clip. So you put these graphics in, and I want to know how you do this, and if you outsource any of those.
We're a tiny company, so we don't have the budget to outsource a whole lot of stuff. The only thing we outsource is like the coloring and post audio,
Okay.
and we get great deals on that. But anyways, yeah, the graphics, I do all the graphics, and it's I'm trying to long story short, I take a old photo, and then I chop it up into different pieces in Photoshop, and then I there's a tool in Photoshop called the clone tool. So like after I cut out something,
Sure.
I clone in the background to kind of
Mhm.
fill it in, and then I have all these different layers, and they've all got transparency in them, and then I separate them within 3D space in a application called Motion 5, or sometimes I use After Effects. There's two different programs for that, and then you animate the motion there, and then you can add composite layers on top of that, whether it be like, I don't know, dust or rain or snow or whatever it needs to be to tell the story.
Well,
And
it is.
that process is there's a reason not you don't see that too often. It's really tedious. It takes forever.
That's what I was thinking, man. Even like, let's take a 3-second clip of a still image, but we're going to have the Milky Way moving in the shot across the sky. So you have to have that layer in there behind it. And then you're using something like After Effects, which for those that don't know is an editing software. And it's going to allow you to add special types of motion.
So
And
funny thing, people have thought that the Milky Way. I've had this question multiple times back when we were able to do screenings before COVID,
Sure.
and a lot of people thought that Milky Way was all special effects, and it wasn't. It was that we actually got that shot out there.
That was
And
beautiful.
so that time lapse, we actually got it at Dead Horse Lake, and the only thing that was computer generated was that I took that Milky Way shot. There's two Milky Way shots that came out really good, and when I needed them beyond those two nights, I just composited those layers behind other layers. So like say on night 2, I wanted to see that Milky Way shot, I would just take the mountains, cut out the mountains, and then put that Milky Way shot behind. There's obviously more to it than that, and trying to angle them right and do all sorts of stuff in 3D space to make sure that it looks, not too flat. And the actual Milky Way shot was real. That was the two Milky Way shots that we used over and over again in the film were actually captured out there.
It was top notch.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hopefully, I wasn't insulting you at all there. Hopefully,
Oh,
it's
no,
more
no, no.
along the lines of like, oh, you think I do steroids? This is all natural. I feel
It's all
good.
natural, bro.
Yeah. So, and the sound design too. Your sound design is also top notch. And for those that don't know, you're basically adding in extra sounds or sounds that you recorded to bring the film more alive, and it is phenomenal.
Yeah, a lot of that was thanks to, I mean, we captured a lot of stuff in the field, and a lot of that stuff did make it into the final production. Most of it probably did. But yeah, we have some pretty good post sound engineers. Bill and Alex they worked on a bunch of major movies, so they've worked on like the Fast and Furious series, which is I know
Wow.
which is not outdoorsy, but they worked on that. They worked on like the Revenant.
Well,
and
they
all sorts
drove
of stuff.
They drove cars outside.
Yeah, right.
It's outdoors.
Yeah.
It's totally outdoors.
But those guys have a lot of experience that they bring to the table. So they took the film, then they filled in any gaps that needed to be there. They would add the ambience, bird sounds, all sorts of cool, whooshes and stuff. They did a really good job at keeping it pretty subtle too. Whenever usually you need some sort of like sonic feedback to when something happens, and if it's not there, it's like weird and blank, and you're like, oh, what's going on? And those guys were good at filling in that stuff and making sure that it all was cohesive, both audio and visual.
Yeah,
That's
there was
incredible.
no point in there that I was like, this is missing something. And you can get that if somebody doesn't have the right sounds or the right music, or it's just not enough. It was great.
Yeah, yeah. That's all those guys. So thanks to them for that. They worked hard on that. It's pretty torture too. It was a lot of torture for them too, especially Bill, because Gordy and I both have music backgrounds. We both recorded a lot of music in our lives, and so we tend to be a little bit more, hardcore about the audio side than I think most filmmakers were. And poor Bill, man, that guy was like working like he didn't sleep a lot. He lost a lot of sleep because of Highline, but in the end, I think it totally paid off. So thank you, Bill, for that suffering. If you're watching,
Now,
We got a really good question for you here from Tom Sipernowski. He's asking, what kind of filmmaking education do you have? Do you have a degree in film or?
no, I actually come from like the tech field. I have 20 years of tech experience. I was like the network security program manager at a high tech company over here. So yeah, no film experience. I honestly, I yeah, I did the John Muir Trail in 2016, and I knew nothing about cameras. Brought a little camera with me. Didn't know what I was doing. Was waving it everywhere, just getting some shots here and there, and then spent some time editing that thing afterwards. And the editing was so painful, and the end result was still okay. It was still, a good way to commemorate the trip, I guess. That after that, I was like, I need to get better at camera stuff. That was editing. That was terrible, man.
I think
So
that's how all the YouTube guys are. Like we're all, it's one of those things. Like we actually have a question from Backcountry Exposure having to do with that. He says, as a cinematographer with a lot of YouTube creators watching, what is one piece of advice you'd give for creators to make their outdoor videos better?
one piece of advice. There's so many pieces of advice. I would say like move the camera half the speed that you think it should move. If you're panning or if you're like moving forward or backwards, whenever you're moving the camera, like you think it needs to go this speed, but like really spin it like half that speed. Like keep camera movement as slow as possible, because when you're in post, it's actually a lot faster than you think it is. So that's one piece of advice. Probably the second piece of advice I would say is shoot a lot, but don't use all your footage in the end, because yeah, you don't need all things can get boring really really quick. I try to keep things cut pretty quick, and just shoot a whole lot so you have the options, and then post just pick the good stuff and only use those little bits. Even if you have this amazing minute long shot of something, just take 2 or 3 seconds of it, or 8 seconds, whatever the story demands. So
now, whenever you're watching other people's stuff, like, have you seen the movie Mile and a Half?
I have. I know those guys. Yeah, Jason Fitzpatrick is actually like one of my mentors. He really helped me get into this stuff. He really answered a lot of my dumb questions in the beginning. So yeah,
So
they're awesome.
whenever you watch stuff like that, do you feel like your experiences and your background in doing the same type of thing, it almost limits you in how immersive that your viewing experience can get? Like, do you ever you're like, oh, I would have done this shot differently, or oh, that was interesting, instead of just being able to sit down and be like, imagine that you don't know anything about music. Like, I play guitar, but
Mhm.
if I had no idea how to play guitar and I saw somebody just shredding, I wouldn't think, oh, okay, well, this is the scale that they're playing. I would
Is he
be
doing
like,
a
wow.
pentatonic scale or something right there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
like a burden.
I'm a musician too, by the way, or was for many many years. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And yes, that happens to me probably worse than the average person, because I was also an engineer for so long. I've always been technical, and I tend to look at things with a technical eye, I think. And so whenever I watch a movie or listen to an album, I'll be like, what kind of guitar cab was that? Or like with a movie, I'm like, what lens did they shoot that with? I recognize the color science. That's the Sony, or that's the that's the Canon, or whatever. And so yeah, it definitely gives me a different way to look at those things that may take me out of the story at times, which isn't great. And I think that's actually how I judge films now, is like, is the story telling good enough where I forget about all the technical stuff? If I watch it and I'm just in the story, that's a good film to me. And Mile and a Half is hard for me to gauge now, because that's really the film that inspired me to start getting into this stuff. I saw that and I was like, whoa, it's so cool. I want to do that. It can't be that hard. And yeah, no, it is that
It's
hard. It's
very
really,
hard, yes.
really freaking hard. It takes a lot of work. And by the way, that movie still holds up
Yeah,
Oh,
Even though
it
it's been a
does.
number of years, it's still great.
That's
But they're-
another one of those movies I've watched at least 4 or 5 times, and I've never watched it and been like, I've watched it, I'm done. I every time I watch it, I catch another spot where I wasn't paying attention maybe the first time, or and the story's fantastic.
It is. It's I
Story's
like it's
fantastic.
just a good feel good film. It's not
Mhm.
like, oh, they had all this drama and they hate each other. It's not. It's just like this happy go lucky film. They're on the John Muir Trail. It's beautiful sights. It's everything you want to see as a backpacker, and I really like it a lot.
dude,
And
they're
find some
back-
random musicians along the way that play the theme song at the end on the top of the
Yeah,
mountain. It
yeah,
was like almost a kumbaya moment there at the end.
yeah. Those guys are. I met them too. Opus
Yeah.
Orange. Yeah, I met them. We did a screening of High Sierra Trail earlier on in LA, and they actually played at the event. And it was kind of cool to be able
Oh,
to meet
that's
them.
cool.
Like, whoa, you guys are awesome, and they were super
That's
nice.
cool.
Or you're talking about the ultralight. You all are trying to go as ultralight as possible so that you'd have
Always.
enough weight, like savings, that you could offset the lenses and the bodies of the camera and all the things you need, extra batteries and all that.
Mhm.
Man, watch a mile and a half. I was like, oh my god, they're having competition to see whose backpack is the heaviest. Their backpack.
Durant
Oh
was
my
like
gosh.
70 pounds or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I couldn't do that. I would make it like a mile and I would fall over. Maybe
Oh,
I'd make it like
yeah.
a mile or a mile and a half.
Like that. That was good. I caught what you
Yeah,
did there.
right? You like that? Yeah.
That's nice. Hey, we actually have a hiking question for you. What was the best part of the HST? This is Huck Outdoors said his was going over the Great Western Divide. What was the part of that you really enjoyed the most?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I really like that. Oh man, you know what? I didn't think I was gonna like the Kern Canyon, but I really liked it. You know, it was just like one of those days where it was kind of long and we were tired, and it just felt really refreshing to be in camp. I didn't even go in the hot springs down there because I thought they were gross. But yeah, that was fun. Going over the Great Western Divide is awesome over Koya Gap. That was super scenic. Whitney's great. There's just so many people there, you know, and it gets a little weird. But yeah, I have a lot of favorite parts. It's hard for me to pick one, but yeah, I think I might agree with you, Mr. Huck Outdoors. Yeah, the Great Western Divide is always cool.
Why do you
I-
think the hot springs were gross?
They're
You got to
great.
watch the movie. Like,
there's, like,
there was green
mold.
slime in it.
Yeah, there's green slime growing in there, and like,
Ah,
and people don't go in there when they're clean, right? They go in there when they've been hiking all day,
hiker
and
trash.
theoretically that all
100%.
rinses out, right? But what if there's not? What if there's like hiker grease like lining
Hiker
that little
grease.
thing in there? I don't know.
It's kind of like the animal pudding that
Yeah,
that you
right.
have
It's
with
like
gravy.
animal sauce.
Well, hey, let's there's something we want to talk about. I don't want to run out of time. You've got a new movie getting ready to come out here in the next year or two,
Yes.
and it's a new project you're working on. Currently, it's just got a working title, the Iceland Project.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about that a little bit?
The Iceland Project is a beast. It's by far the biggest project we've ever worked on. We're using nicer cameras, nicer everything. We've been planning this thing for already about, I think, 9 or 10 months, and the trip's going to start in July. And this one is going to be a lot heavier than the previous films. There's a woman named Tara who's probably watching right now. Hi, Tara. She's great, and she has a crazy life story, like really, really, like unbelievable life story, and it's not something that is very. Yeah, it's challenging to tell because there's so many elements to it. I mean, I feel like every part, every segment of her life is kind of like a whole movie in itself. So we're trying to figure out how to distill that properly and cut it in with the adventure she's going to have in Iceland. But with the previous films, it's been like, you know, me and John hiking, pretty lighthearted. Highline got a little bit more heavy for sure, and there was, you know, 5 people. This film is going to be just her. So that's how heavy her story is. It's going to be following her as she goes through Iceland, has some adventures, and then we start telling her story along the way. And we're still working in how we're going to figure out the history component. There's some elements that seem to align with her history, believe it or not. So there's some things that happened, like, you know, hundreds of years ago that may align with her story, that where we might tie that together. But we're definitely trying to be careful not to distract from her story too much, because it's a beefy one. In Highline, you might. There was some personal stories. I mean, if you look at Benny's story, if you look at Matt's story, or Steve's, I mean, they're heavy ones. I would say expect that times like 10 for this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there will be tears. So I would definitely expect to be shocked and have a lot of tears and stuff. But she's also just kind of a funny, happy-go-lucky person. So it's not gonna be like too serious all the time, but it will be a heavier movie. A lot of effort's going into that. The crew's gonna be bigger, nicer cameras, all that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be a big deal, and it's tough with the whole COVID situation. We're working through that right now. I mean, traveling is not easy with COVID. You've got quarantine periods when you land in Iceland, and we're trying to work through all of that. And yeah, it's gonna be challenging, but worth the effort.
Well, and I was gonna say I know with obviously your first trip, you already knew John, so that there's already a relationship there. And then when you did Highline, you already had a relationship with the Z-Packs guys, right? You already kind of knew them beforehand.
I knew Matt the best, and the other ones I had phone conversations with here and there, but I didn't know them that well until we were on the trip. So
Yeah.
Tara, I've actually been we talk regularly. So for the last 9 months or so, we've been chatting pretty much every time I'm online. We're talking about something, and we've had many conversations. So I feel like I'm getting to know her really well. And you really, it's weird. Like as a filmmaker, as a documentarian in particular, you're really getting into some personal stuff, and you feel like you have a responsibility to tell that right. And so there's a trust thing going on. So yeah, I would say we're good friends at this point, and we're learning more and more about her story and how to tell it right. And yeah, so it feels like we've known each other for a long time, even though it's not that long.
Well,
Yeah.
what's the most challenging part about putting that whole thing together? Is it the logistics and having to deal with COVID, or is it the filming or the post-production, or?
Yes, and yes. It's all hard. So the COVID situation is causing us pain right now because we're trying to figure stuff out. The sponsor support has been tougher to get because so many businesses have been hurting. 2020 was not good for anybody really, and that's been challenging for us. Actually, what has been doing great is the mental health industry. So apparently a lot of people are having mental health challenges, and so that industry is thriving pretty well. So we're getting some sponsor support through them, which is wonderful because the film is very mental health focused, and I think that her story being conveyed to people will help anybody watching it in a really good way. Kind of like Benny's story. I know a lot of people have been helped by Benny's story. We've helped, we've had people reach out, say, thank you. Benny's story was really inspiring to me. It helped me get through rough times. This is going to be a much heavier version of that, if you can believe it.
Wow.
And so yeah, I mean that's been tough. And then obviously the storytelling is going to be tough because a lot of things that happened 20 years ago. And when you're going through rough times 20, 30 years ago, you don't necessarily take a picture of it. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to convey that on screen. So
Wow.
yeah, a lot of motion graphics going to be involved. Some even tasteful, careful recreations. It's not going to be like a cheesy recreation like you see somewhere else. It's going to be like very carefully and tastefully done. And I would say this film is going to be it's going to be a documentary by genre, but the way that we're shooting it's going to be more like a cinematic narrative. It's going to be a lot more beauty shots, a lot more artsy type shots that are going to be carefully crafted versus just kind of like, oh, shaky camera, let's just get it. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be a lot more thoughtful.
Yeah. Somebody I think Thomas Clark is on here. He says he hiked the High Sierra Trail with Tara.
Hey,
So
Tom.
he was real excited that she was going to be involved with the Iceland Project. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, she was actually recommended to us by a mutual friend. We have a guy named Greg Glass who, like I said, we're a small production company, right? We're not huge. We don't have this huge staff, but we have a friend named Greg who's been providing us with like legal advice and counsel every time we get a contract from a distributor or whatever. Greg's been awesome at helping us, and we just happen to have Tara. He happened to have this friend named Tara who had a really good story. And he's like, dude, you should do a movie about her. She's amazing, and from the second I got her on the phone, I knew it was going to be, one.
Oh yeah. Somebody actually asked the question: have you thought about financing in part through Kickstarter?
Yes, that's always tough. Like we did get some Kickstarter funding for Highline, which is great. That really helped get us through the finish line, and we definitely will be pursuing that for this. I was talking to the others about that. What we're likely going to do is shoot the whole project, come back, cut a trailer, and then use the trailer to help kind of sell the Kickstarter to show people
Yeah.
we're not just saying, oh, we're gonna take your money and do some random whatever. We're actually gonna like show you the quality. Here's what we're gonna deliver. Ultimately, it's gonna be high quality. We're putting our heart and soul into this thing. We're also writing over this. We're putting everything into this film, and we need your help getting across the finish line. So that's likely we're gonna do that when we get back. It's it's tough. Right now there's a lot of people that are hurting financially, and I feel kind of weird asking for money from people. I hate being like, hey, I know you just lost your job due to COVID. Can we have some money? I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be
Mhm.
that person. So it's been tough. So I mean, with sponsors, that's been tough. A lot of the companies are coming back saying, hey, we're shutting our doors. Like BlackRock Gear, for
Sad.
example. They're an awesome company. They were a big sponsor of Highline, and they're gone.
I
So
did not.
it's
I actually didn't know that.
yeah.
Really?
Sorry to break the news. Yeah, BlackRock,
Wow.
amazing company, good people.
Yeah.
Man, they're
Make great hats. They're down
great down
hats.
hats.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're gone. The way of the dodo.
Wow.
Well, boys, I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit.
Cool.
One of my favorite things about the live streams is people get to ask these questions.
Awesome.
And so I looked a little bit while we were talking, and there's always poop talk. So
I was wondering if you were gonna see those.
yeah,
That's
I
great.
saw
I
it.
was wondering.
I saw it, and I saw Miyagi talking about me stealing his toilet paper, and that's true. I did take his toilet paper, but
What?
I won't go deep into this. But we took this trip. And we got a buddy named Miyagi, and he likes playing practical jokes. Like I remember we were going to get up, and it was the last day, and we had to get up early enough. And there it is. Yeah, see, Midwest Backpacker. He was on this trip. We were in the Smokies, and the last day we had to get up early enough because it was all uphill for 9 miles to the highest point on the AT, Klingman's Dome. And we were coming from like the lowest point you can go in the Smokies, down around the creeks and rivers and bends. And I was like, I'll get up, man. I'm infamous for sleeping in. Okay. So whenever I was in my trail family on the long trail, we were called the Brunch Club because that's like when we would get out of bed. And I remember it was like 5:15. I had an alarm set for 5:30 a.m. And he had his phone, and he had brought like a speaker or a call or something. And he was making like dying rabbit sounds and wolf sounds right next. He crawled under my tarp and put it next to my ear in my hammock. And it was just yelling into my ear. And I was like, bro, can I not sleep this last 15 minutes? So yes, Miyagi, I took your toilet paper, but he also put like 3 or 4 rocks into my pack, and I found them multiple days later. So you're sick human being.
Days. Oh,
Yes,
no.
I carried them all the way to the top. One of them I didn't find until I got home.
The highest
So-
point on the AT, actually, isn't it? Wasn't that where you
Yes.
carried him to? The highest point on the
Yes.
AT.
So he said that, I think he said in the comments, I was just like scanning them, but he was talking about having to use a bidet. So I want to hear, it can be yours, or it can be while you were on the High Sierras or the Uintas. What was the craziest poop story, whether it's
Oh,
yours
man.
or somebody else's?
I've got one. Oh man, I hope he's not watching right now. It's really bad. It's really bad.
I need first and last name.
So in the High Sierra Trail, John, sorry if you're watching this, man. So John from the High Sierra Trail, on the last day, we did Whitney, and we're coming down, and anybody who's done Whitney knows that when you're heading out to Whitney Portal, there's 99 switchbacks, right? So pretty
Wow.
long way down, and they're very exposed. I'm not talking height exposed. I'm talking like, no, you can't hide anywhere.
Okay.
And we're going down this thing, and I think on switchback 2 or 3, dude, he's gonna kill me. On switchback 2 or 3, he had a attack.
Oh
And
no.
he had to use in that area you're supposed to use wag bags, and we did that. And he had to pull out the wag bag, and there's nowhere to hide, so it's just right in the middle of the trail. He sets up this wag bag, and there's like cliff to his left, and then there's like a cliff wall to his right, so just not much right there. Puts down the wag bag. I keep going. I'm like, dude, I'm like laughing, so I keep going. And sure enough, like the next switchback, just right below, there was like 20 people coming up. Dude. And like I go all the way to the bottom. Finally, like 45 minutes, he comes down. I'm waiting there forever. Like 45 minutes later, he comes down. I'm like, dude, how'd it go, man? Like, what happened? He's like, I don't want to talk about it. And then I didn't even know the details until like maybe a month or two, a couple of months after we finished the film. We were doing a screening in California, and somebody asked the question like, did you have any stories like that? and he actually told the story, so I was kind of surprised. But yeah, he it was like 40 or 50 people passed him on the trail, and didn't just pass him while he was pooping, had to step over the top of him. They had to like step around him because they don't want to fall off the cliff. So, and he had and he was trying to save his, to try to hide himself from the embarrassment. He had this big hat, and he tried to use that to cover his head so nobody could see him. But of course, on the trail, when everybody got to see him, that was his recognizable feature, was this big hat. So they all knew exactly who it was. Poor John, man. That was one of the funniest moments I've had on the trail, actually.
Oh,
For me, it was funny for me. It wasn't funny for him, but it was funny for me.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, poor
that's
John.
embarrassing.
Yeah,
That is fantastic. It's a shame that wasn't on the video.
I almost made
no.
it. I didn't film it though. I didn't want to get.
Well,
too
yeah. Oh man, that is great.
Look at that.
Well, we're about 5 minutes from an hour right now already, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Cool. But I would love. So here we go. Mic drop. Chris wins. So here's a question for you. How can people find you? How can they find you on, as far as Outmersive Films? How can we find updates on the Iceland Project as they come? Can we find you on Instagram? Why don't you share some of the information with everybody so they can figure out where they can find you online?
Sure. Yeah. So Outmersive is, our company name. More of a collective, really. But yeah, so outmersivefilms.com, outmersivefilms.com. Yay. That's our website, and there you could see, there's links to our previous films. There's some information about the Iceland Project. If you want to be really nice, you can make a donation there towards the project, but I don't want to, pry there.
Make donations, people. We'll tell you to. He doesn't want to, but we'll tell you to. Make a donation.
Desperate. We've got travel bills to cover, and this is going to be an expensive one. But yeah, so outmersivefilms.com for that. We're also on, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, technically. Yeah, I think we have Twitter. Emma's watching. Emma does her social media stuff. She's probably watching this like, what the heck, man? But yeah, we're on, Instagram. Just look for Outmersive. Twitter, I think, Outmersive. And then Facebook, Outmersive. Just look for Outmersive. We're the only Outmersive out there. Nobody else would come up with a weird name like that. I thought it was clever, though.
Where did the name, what made you come up with the name?
Dude, we went through so many name iterations, and when it started, it was just me, and I used to call it Chris's Awesome Productions. That's how serious I was taking it. And then as other people came into it, they're like, we should probably change it to a different name. So we went through all these different name ideas, and, the idea of like, it's immersion into the outdoors through film. So we want to immerse people into this experience, like, immerse, but outside, outmersive. Whoa. And that's how it came about. So we just kind of made up, and nobody had ever made up that word before. So we're kind of cool like that.
You guys are the cool kids.
We are. We try. We're not. We're actually really geeky people, but we fake it.
Well, you do great work, man.
Sounds like fun to me.
Thank you.
I had a pleasure talking to you tonight and watching your films. I'll have to go back and watch your original film. I haven't seen it yet, and hopefully, if people can't donate, whenever the film comes out, they can rent it or buy it to help support.
Yep. It'll be on all the major streaming platforms, Amazon, all that stuff. So,
and I was going to say, too, if you want to see the High Sierra Trail, you can go over to Amazon. It's on Amazon right now, Amazon Prime. I rented it last night and watched it. I've been looking for it for a while and finally found it over there on Amazon Prime, so check that out. Highline's on everything. I think I actually bought that on Apple when I got that one. So great movies, man. We love the work you're doing. Keep it up.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
You definitely give us all stuff to aspire to go see. That's the great part about it. Is you do these cool trails that we're all wanting to go there because of, like you said, I'd never heard of the Highline Trail until Redbeard started talking about going down there to film it several years ago now, when you guys actually filmed that. And the videos, the movie itself is amazing. Just the video quality and everything about it was incredible.
Thanks so much. Yeah, a lot went into it, so that definitely is appreciated.
Well, thanks so much for being on, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Hey, Jeremiah, you got any more questions before?
No, man. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can have you back on whenever your new film comes out and we can talk about it.
Yeah, anytime.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely, that'd be awesome. All right, man, we're gonna throw you into the green room and close things out here real quick. But thanks for being on.
Alrighty, thanks guys. Talk to you soon.
Let's see it. Why is it that everybody who comes on here is just so awesome?
Fun conversations, man.
I'll tell you, man, it's been great. It's been great. And I am really looking forward to this new project, the Iceland Project.
Yes, I really, after watching his films, embarrassed at my production quality. I got to up the game, which is good for my subscribers.
That's true. That's true. And I'm just loving the storytelling. That was the thing that really attached me to the High Sierra Trail video, and then seeing all the different interwoven stories from Highline was unbelievable. It was just so well done.
Yes, I highly suggest everybody going and checking out all of them. I can't wait to go watch his original.
Absolutely. Well, just a real quick update for everybody. Don't forget that starting in June, we will not be having these on our personal YouTube channels anymore. These are moving to the Backpacking Podcast YouTube channel. So if you aren't subscribed yet, go ahead and get subscribed, or your Monday nights are going to be very lonely. And we don't want that for you.
Yeah.
So.
And Wednesday. So this was not live streamed. This was a recorded episode privately. We had Heather Anish Anderson, who set the fastest known time, not just female, of all people on the PCT. And we had a great conversation with her, talked to her for an hour. She wrote a book about it. She's got a new book coming out. So definitely check that out. That's Wednesday, the 24th, February 24th, if you're watching right now. And if you're listening later, then hopefully you've already listened to it. Or if you haven't, go back and check it out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. She was so interesting to talk to. Also, the next couple of weeks, we got some great guests coming on. Next week, we got Justin Hick from Justin Outdoors. This is our first Canadian guest. So kind of stoked about that, and chatting with Justin a little bit about everything he's doing. He's kind of, I always joke that he's kind of the Canadian Dan Becker. So it'll be good to have him on here next week. And then the week after that, we've got Frozen from Outdoor Adventures, who's going to be on.
He threw hockey AT recently. So he's got a great YouTube channel. Go check it out. And I can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah, he's going to be fantastic. So I guess, Jeremiah, it's time for us to sign off for the night. So as always, it's good hanging out with you, buddy.
Yes, you too, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure.
Yep, we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Adios.